I'm coming. All right. This is the place to be in Ohio because it is 93 degrees outside. And that was my backyard in the shade. That's not Ohio that I grew up in. So, what a great day just to push back and share something that's really, it was concerning for me, but now it's becoming more imperative that I really bring forward this whole concept of tabletop rock, mostly because no one else is talking about it. And we need to get an umbrella classification for rocks that we're finding out in our fields. Now, out in the southwestern part of the United States, they have another name for this, and I'll even tell you what that name is if I can find it. It's called a nether stone. Would you rather call these nether stones or tabletop rocks? You make the decision. I want to leave nether stones in southwest U.S., tabletops here on the east side of the Mississippi River. So anyway, what I've tried to do is sit down and take a serious look at these things and see if I can help you a little bit, because it helps me. I think to know something, you teach it. And if you really want to know it, you teach it more than once and you dig in. So I have some things to show, some things to tell. Let's start over here. I have some things I need to read to you, and then we're going to take a look at the rocks. So I jotted down a couple things. We're going to talk about tabletop rocks, very important to me, and I hope that this will become a significant part of your life. But warning, warning, you may end up dragging a lot of these home. So your petunia beds are going to turn into rock piles. I wish I could help you with that, but at this point I can't. Tabletop rocks, I wrote down chisel plow because this year one of my fields was chisel plowed for the first time in over 20 years. And the tabletop rocks came out of the ground like crazy. I'm like, what is going on? There are so many. And then as I thought about it, two things. I'm dealing with a multicultural, multi-millennial collection of village sites. Many, 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 many over probably a 50 to 75 acre field. And that alone is good enough. But remember I was talking to you about uniface blades. The reason there's so many out there is nobody was picking them up, probably for the most part until the 1970s, maybe early 80s. They wanted notch points, and their brain just didn't see them. It was just flakes, chips, debitage, whatever. But now that we're losing our farming land, and now that fields are getting smaller, more apartment complexes are going in, more supermarkets, more cultural people saying it belongs to them when it does not belong to them. We're being pressed. So we're looking at our sites a little bit differently. We're looking a little bit harder. And I think we're contemplating the things that we're finding. So I started off my sheet of paper with you by saying context and patterns. This is not new to you. If you followed my YouTube site, you know that this is a way of life. It's part of me. It's part of Mark's Archaeology, Field Archaeology 101. It's the basis of what you're doing when you're out in your field. Does it belong here? Context. Does it belong here? Does it belong on a hilltop? Does it belong in the floodplain? Does it belong in a stream or river? Is it river washed, river polished? Does it belong? And then secondly, patterns. Are you finding this item that doesn't belong? Are you finding it with any consistency on village or major camp areas? Context, patterns. That's going to open up Pandora's box for you. That's probably the best way to say it, because you're going into a whole new world that I know probably 90% of you have never gone there before. But we're going to go into it today. You're going to go into it on your own. You're going to relook at your petunia garden and see if you pitched a few of these out. But as I start us in, I'm going to start us by saying context, patterns. Where does it belong? Does it belong on your village site? Does it belong on your significant campsite? Patterns. Are we seeing it with any regularity where we need to think about it? And then I want to talk to you about some other things that I wrote down, because concavities is a cool word. I like it a whole lot. And it describes a type of tabletop rock concavity. And these concavities can be a very slight indentation, or they can be a big groove, or they can be a bowl shaped. These are all types of concavities. And I think you can look it up in the dictionary if you need a clear definition. Concretions. That's something that if you're in Ohio, you ought to be familiar with this, because we are a mostly glaciated state and these things are everywhere. But let me grab one real quick. Well, actually, I'll just show you a bunch. Can you get in there, camera? This is just a little box with a bunch of concretions that I picked up in the last couple fields that I walked. They're everywhere. And you've got a hard mineral content on the outside and another mineral content in the middle. Why do we look at these? Because they made artifacts out of them. Here's a large concretion, and what's really cool, it looks just like two clusters with a line around it, except that it's got a bird wing on it. This is not a conjure or a dream. This is an actual bird wing with a matching wing on the other side and the head. Concretion. Okay, they use these for whatever. Don't know. I just want you to successfully collect when you're in the field. Okay, and then I wrote down a book, and I talked to you briefly about it before, Groundstone Analysis. And the reason I like Jenny's book, and she's given a whole lot of names to these tabletop rocks that apply very well for southwestern United States, but not eastern USA. So we're going to talk a little bit about Eastern USA. But one thing that she does and does very well in there, she does a lot of work with experimental archaeology, and then really does a very close examination of the wear on these rocks. And they are able to say this was used on rawhide, on flint dried hides. This was used with bone, antler, other rock. And that's information we want. It's going to tell us more about our village site, more about the occupation, what was going on, how significant of a site it was. So I have it. And you're going to find as you enter deeper into the world of field archaeology, there will be things that you agree with, things that you don't, things that I share that you don't agree with, things that I share that you do, and some new stuff. That's all a part of it, because we're all growing, and with this site, we're all growing together, and we respect each other's opinions and ideas, but all of it is getting us further down the road. Stone Tools by Robert Converse, and down here, you can order this book by giving Peggy Potter a call. She's the secretary of the Archaeological Society of Ohio. So here's Peggy. They screwed up on her phone number, so here's her phone number for a second time. And you can email her also. And the reason I'm doing that is because I would like for you to get Bob's book on stone tools, especially in the eastern half of the United States. It's so helpful. It's almost like Michael Gramley's book on prehistoric tools. Even though he does a lot of his work up in northeast USA, the technology, the lithics apply everywhere. So Bob Converse, I'll show you a couple of his books real quick. And I wish to God that everybody would have these. One of you said, hey, you don't give us enough of a look. Well, I'm giving you a look, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to open it up and show you how he does it. He gives you some examples of the point in Ohio. I chose the archaic side notch because it's one of the most abundant that's found throughout the state of Ohio. And it's among the oldest, around 9,000 BC. And then over here, I'm looking upside down and I'm trying to read this. But over here, it gives you a description, what they look like, where you'll find them, material, what they're made of, the age, scarcity, plentiful. This is like a dictionary on these points. And what is beautiful about this book is that literally every point that we find in Ohio is in the book, archaic bevels, and the same thing goes. You get descriptions, rare or not, where these are found, and the material that they're made out of, are they rare? This is stuff that you want. So as you march on in your field archaeology, or the winters haunt you like they haunt me, I grab these books and I pull them out and I just labor over it. So I highly recommend this. Christmas present, birthday present, um, manna from heaven. It's a good book. And then I told you that Peggy is the secretary of our society. I know that many of your states also have good societies. I'm calling you out on this one because our journal is really helpful. For the most part, it's layman walkers, layman archaeologists who've written the articles. Occasionally you'll get an academic who will write. In Ohio, we don't have the relationships with our academics that some of you do, like Texas, for example, or Florida, or Southeast United States, or even the Central States Archaeology Journal, where there's a great collaboration between field walkers and the academics. Unfortunately, our academics think they know a lot more than you and I, who have spent 20, 30, 40, 50, and for me, even more, 60 years of significant walking and studying. So for me, it's a consensus. It's bringing everybody together. What can we learn from this? And everybody's opinion is important. That's why I try really hard to get back to all of you when you ask me your wonderful questions. And this guy is out of print, but I think for those of you who are lucky enough to have it, he is really looking at all the chert types, and he's done a great job. Same thing as Bob. Let me open him up. The layout is a little bit different. He has a picture of the flint type, and then on the opposing page, he'll give you information about it, where it's found. It's just extending your information, making your field walking. It's like putting muscle on bone. It's beefing you up a little bit. So this is hard to get. I know they're still available off of. Well, you can try eBay, but Amazon comes up with a few once in a while. If you can get it under $100, get it. And no, I don't have that kind of money either, but it's a good investment. And good investments should last a lifetime. So good book, good journal. And I shared with you about Bob's book on flint types. And now I want to just briefly share some of the tabletops. And I'm going to place some of these rocks under tabletops to get us started. Let me just do that right now. And I'm going to be jumping back and forth from my notes to my time with you. So for me, just a real quick overview of tabletops. There's something that a table means it's on top of something. And top, it is the top, a table that they can work on, and a top. So examples would be an anvil, an abrader that's set down on the ground that you can rub on. Concavities, there's a whole slew of different kinds of concavities, from finger bowls to pitted stones, and it gets bigger and wider and more. And then I added one that I just call a flat top rock. And a flat top is a rock that's been modified. You'll see it geometrically altered. It's been modified to create a very nice, flat, good working surface. Much like maybe you want a cutting board or you're tying flies, you need a solid rock surface that you can work on. It's not going to move. I added some of the things that she had. She called them stone polishers. And these are things that we find. They're concavities. They're handheld. I'll show you some of these in a minute. We don't know what a lot of these are used for. And a lot of it is conjure. Some of it we use experimental archaeology, and we can get close to probably what they were doing with them. But I want to get a group of rocks underneath the umbrella of tabletop. And that's what I'm trying to do. So to give you an example of Bob's books, because I seriously want you to grow. This is his discussion on on cupstones. So you get plenty of pictures, and the same thing. He describes them, what they are, what they're made out of, where they're found, how common, how uncommon, and the basic, generally speaking, materials. Usually got some silicon or sand, and it's everything that you want to know. And then here's another one that I place under tabletop rocks. And I know a lot of you are finding these right now. A friend of mine in one of our local reservoirs probably has 10, 12, 15 that he's found already in one spot. But these are hand size. I'm going to pick one up and hold it while we're looking at the picture. They're hand size. Sometimes they show oxidation where they've been near a fire, like this one. You can see it's oxidized a little bit here. Down here it is not. You can get oxidation just from natural mineral deposits, and you can also get it from heat. And that's something that you want to learn. This has a very, very slight concavity, and I can feel it very nicely right in the center here. Okay, pitted stone. So, once again, Bob looks at this big, then he hones in on specialties. But in Ohio, this is something that if you have a village site, they're there. I can tell you, they are there. Every village site I have in the 2.5 counties that I walk, 100%, I can count on it. And then it's just a matter of color, shape, size, texture, and pulling them out. Exotics, do they belong there or not? Okay. Get the book. And if somebody in your state wrote it, I would say get the book from your state. But again, this has got to be in your library. If you want to grow, with what you're finding, it needs to be in your repertoire. You got to have it. So what I've done, again, real quickly, I'm going to talk about this and get right into the papers here. Context and patterns are what are going to cue you in on tabletop rocks. Whole new concept, tabletop rocks. You're hearing it here on 101, and I'm sure it's been in your brain for a long time, and we all just needed to call them something. And under that, you're going to find a whole group of rocks from an anvil, and I'll show you one right here, from an anvil to a pitted stone. This, first of all, I picked it up because I've never seen a piece of black granite ever in my field walking, let alone the field where it came from. And then the site that it was on, just the granite type material itself just said, pick me up, which I did. So we have a pitted stone, and it's not a cupstone. These are multiple hits, then they're not destined for the center. They're just in the certain nuclei right here like this. They're hitting all over the place. I watched a flint knapper in Ohio by the name of Roy Miller make some fluted points, and he was getting a second hit on the flint by placing the point of his biface on the rock, hitting it. The energy's down, hits the rock, bounces, comes back up. He's getting a really unique flake removal anvil. They can be cracking, breaking anything. Some of these can be used for cracking nuts. But this one got picked up because it was very unusual color. And then when I cleaned it off, I'm like, holy smolies. This is one incredibly used hammerstone. I don't know about you, but I think about 4 minutes of pounding with this thing, I'm going to have to stretch out and have some iced tea. It's heavy. It's very dense granite. Okay. So let me just take a look at what I brought. Again, why are there so many tabletops? And this is really important. And I just ask you then, well, why are there so many uniface blades? They've always been there, but suddenly somebody has called your attention to them. You've slowed yourself down and you're looking at these things. There's so many because they've just simply not been recognized. Just like notch points were number one forever. Even today, a lot of these people who are hunting without permission, they're running in fields and they're going after notch points and they're getting back out. Please, 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 people, there are many of you who are following me. Don't do that. Get permission. Some people over toward Canton reminded me how hard they worked to secure some fields and how hard they work with the landowners and what's happening in their area getting closed down because people from not just Wayne County, but Medina County, Stark County, Harrison County, Portage County in Ohio are coming down without permission. That's people. There are laws for a reason. And I'm not here to scold you. I'm just saying be responsible. Somebody's worked really hard to get that field. And when you lose it, sometimes your heart breaks. So tabletop rocks can vary from granite all the way to something as soft as sandstone. They can be very small. They can be very large. And you'll see these in a minute. From very small, they can be very small round, very small flat, very small narrow, thin, thick. I want to keep on saying this, tabletop rocks. I want that in your head. And I want you to start thinking the types of rock that we would put under that header. I think we've got most of them, but we're growing together and we're going to put this together and we're going to come out with a statement. And that's a good thing. Okay, yay. I get to move on. I think that when I was out following that chisel plow and seeing the number of tabletops that came out, and this is a field that's been walked forever in this east central Ohio County, I was just stunned. But then again, remembering people just didn't see these until very, very recently. Remember this with your context. They don't belong. And look for the patterns. So what are they? They are basically a working platform, and I wrote it down. They are basically a working platform. Oh, thank God for breaks. This is when I get my drink. This is when I've been reminded that I have a mint in my mouth that it's hitting my teeth and clanking, and that's because I have allergies. So I have mentholated things to help me with that. And then as we laughed and caught our breath and got ready to come back and share with you guys, I was reminded in my last video, I was talking about these broken, cute little bells that I find in a couple fields. And I very naively called them cowbells. Well, I have since learned that they are sleigh bells. And thank you, because one of you did catch that and you were very gracious and kind, and you did not embarrass me, but you reminded me that we learn from each other. So thank you for that. Okay, flipping over here again. Tabletop rocks. It's a working platform on top of something. And for example, just trying to bring it home to you, in our place, we have cutting boards in our kitchen. Think of all the different kind of work that you do on a cutting board. We have workbenches in our garage or in our basement. Look at all the work that we do, the varieties of work that we do on these benches. Card tables, or we do social things. Countertops where where our kitchens come alive. We have TV trays where we can take our little portable tables around different places in the house. And then we have dining tables. We have meat processing tables. Some of you have these big giant tables in the middle of your kitchen for major projects. And then I just put down large tables for large jobs. But this is some of what we do. And then quickly over here, the same thing if you're thinking about them with their tabletop rocks. We don't know. We know that textiles were a mega significant part of their lives. We know that. We know it goes clear back to 12, 13, 14,000 BC because of Monteverde, Chile, and the paleo site that was uncovered there. So textiles not only have been a part of their life, but a significant. They need a place to work. So I wrote down some of the jobs they may have done. Textiles, meat processing. They may have been cutting up bone, ribs, backs, rump roast. I don't think they were doing it in the sand. And I don't think they were doing it in grass. Their tabletop could have been just a large mastodon bone, or it could have been something of significance. Woodworking, they did woodworking, sculpting. When I say sculpting, cutting slate, cutting mica, pounding and rolling out copper. They needed a tabletop. Flint knapping. There's all kinds of jobs and things going on with flint knapping, hide processing. Um, then we mentioned anvils a little bit earlier. We mentioned abraders. We mentioned grinding. And we mentioned cup and pitted stones. But are you getting it now? Tabletop rocks. Just a platform where they did their work. And she has a name for it, and calling it a nether stone. And as she explained it, she said, and by the way, we have this term for everything else they did that we don't know what they did. And we'll call it a nether stone. Like, what? Why just call it a tabletop? But nevertheless, that's what they did, and we're going to have our name for it, and they're going to have their name for it. So, but I do want to mention her book, and I'm not saying anything but nice things about it, because this is a mega scholarly, well done, well documented, well tested, tried, and proven book, with Arizona probably being the key state. But a lot of the information they had came from current living Native Americans, which is great, but it's a little bit different here in Ohio. So, this is something that I hope that we all get. So anyway, she uses a lot of like catch-alls, and for us, we don't necessarily have that. But I think the way as we process, my head needs a little bit of patterns to work from. And so this is what we're all going to work together. What rocks? What are we going to call them to place under this umbrella of tabletops? So I brought in some tabletops, and I'd like to walk you through these for the next minutes that we have together. Let's start down here on the big side, because Bob mentions different types of rocks, pitted stones, cup stones, and says for the most part they're very small. Well, most of them are small, but some of them are really, really big. This one came on a mini bike trail through a woods with a ravine down below it. And the person on their mini bike said, "They move that rock out of our path." Bam, look at the cup stone. This one cup right here. These things are massive. They're very, very heavy. So your pitted stones, your cup stones can be very large. And who knows what they used in it? It could have been something as small as this. It could have been something as small as this. And the reason that I picked these two is because geometrically, this is as flat as a razor blade. And when you look at this, you can see polish, polish, polish where they polished it. This is a teeny tiny tabletop rock. But you know what? Not everybody was 6'8". Not everybody was 6 foot. Not everybody was 5 foot. Sometimes you just simply had small tools for small hands. Sometimes you had small tools for small jobs. Tremendous diversity there, okay? These are cup, tabletop. Any bigger, we need wheels to move this thing around. And I like to have a little metric ruler wherever I'm working on stuff so you can kind of get a mindset on these things. One side, bone flat. If I can lift it. The other side is rounded with a lot of natural swales and sways and pits on it like that. But this is just one side. This is the working side. They could pound this thing into the ground. They have a stable table. This isn't going to move. They can do anything they want to do on this thing. And then we said that these pitted stones and these cup stones could be very small. Like this one, very small. They can be very large. They can be multiples. They can be singles. Down in southern and southeastern Ohio, where a lot of our rock shelters are, sometimes you'll find a large outcropping of rock that they were actually sitting on. And some of these quote unquote cups are multiple cups, like 20 or 30 of them. And some of them are huge mortars or pestles are going in there and grinding stuff, okay? I don't have a backup truck to load one of those here. This is probably the biggest quandary that you're going to run into. And I wish Let me just warn your wives ahead of time that your rock garden is going to get bigger. I promise it will. As your curiosity grows, and as you start to get a grasp for what tabletops are, uh, you're going to bring more and more of these home. And it's frustrating because most of my sites are not by the road. They're on the other end of the field. Basically, flat. I'm going to flip him. And here's just the rolling natural surface that's been modified a little bit. This by the plow and the disc, but there's some archaeological modifications on this as well. Over here, with a hand lens, I'm able not only to see these 1, 2, 3, 4 grooved areas that they put in here to knock this thing down and flatten it, but then I'm able to find the smooth and the polishing that was going on this tabletop rock. Tabletop rock. Different texture, different coarse material that this is made out of. This side is it's been broken up by the plows and the discs. This is semi-rounded, very abrasive silicon in this. Flip him over. Right here is concavity. I don't know if you're able to see that. I'm going to put my finger in it. Got a nice little concavity right here. And then up here, this has been polished, highly polished. This is the working surface. They can have 3 or 4 jobs going on the same surface. Concavity, polished real nicely. No man's land. We have a lot of limestone around our fire pits, and I'm finding some limestone on my village sites. Certainly, I'm finding it on my preform sites where they're working flint. Another one of our necessary stops. Pretty much I run through these. I don't repeat anything or learn anything or memorize anything. We just move through it. And occasionally we need to take a stop. This one was for the videographer. But I was talking to you about limestone, and I'm finding it more and more, especially the closer to the flint pits I get. Sometimes it's been worked, sometimes it has not. This side obviously has been either geologically removed or prehistorically removed right here. I'm going to flip him over. You can see the rock, whatever thickness it was, and then they had tools where they could chisel, put their chisels in and split it off, and they did. And when you look at the surfaces on this, what you find is that all the abrasive surfaces have been polished out. They're gone. This whole area has been polished off. And we have, and even a slight concavity right here, and a little bit of a smoothed area right here, a tabletop rock. I know you're going, oh my God, I'll never learn this. It's so confusing. It is. Like anything, when you start out, it's confusing. But you're going to learn. You're going to go somewhere with it. This is another little tiny rock, much like the limestone, much like the sandstone. This is a really, really fine-grained rock, somewhere between metamorphic and something as loose as sand. But again, on a village site, I can see where it's been altered. I'm going to flip him. We have a kind of a geometric shape here, but what we have, and I don't know if you can see it, is the surface. This could not be any smooth. This would be like a peach with all the fuzz shaved off. This is perfectly smooth, and with a hand lens, you'll see where they worked and worked to get this surface. On this side, it's right here with a slight concavity right here. Worked and worked. And remember, you've got to use your sense of touch because this is part of your brain, and this will help you figure out what you've got. Tabletop rock. Tabletop rock. It sits on top of something, okay, for work. This happens to be what we call a finger bowl. It doesn't mean that they were using this for war paint. We have no way to substantiate that. It doesn't mean they're using venom of a rattlesnake or a copperhead, putting their spear or bone tips in here to shoot them against somebody. We have no way of validating that. We have no way of saying, well, they're getting red ochre and they're painting their face. These are all great possibilities. But what we do know is that this has been geometrically altered like crazy and polished. This has been just right in the charcoal within a fire pit. Probably a concretion. In Ohio, we have concretions, and you want to pay attention to those. Okay? Charcoal stained. Another, and the reason I have a lot of these sandstone are context. They don't belong in the middle of a floodplain field, a first stage or secondary stage floodplain. They don't belong there. They belong up on the ridge tops. How did they get from the ridge tops to where they are? Too far to erode down the side of the hill, the mountains, and to end up out there. These were hand carried. We look at them, we have a rough surface on one side, pretty much the cortex or the outer material of the rock. A little bit of alterations going on right here. May have had a hump and they just removed it. Flat. It will sit flat. And when I look at this one, I can see already their alterations, their grooves going in this, where they were trying to create a surface, a tabletop rock that they could work on. I could pick this up. I could go down and sit by a stream and work. I could pick this up and sit by a campfire and work. I can pick this up and go sit by my mother-in-law. No, it would never happen. But I could pick it up. They're mobile. Some are big, not mold. Some are small, and you can take them wherever you need to go. Another tabletop came off of a really significant village site. They can be thick. They can be thin. Doesn't belong there. Context. It does not belong there. A little bit of the cortex here. A lot of the altered outer part of the sandstone. Some of it are dings with plows and discs, but there's a large amount of removal that is prehistorically done. This is semi-flat. It will sit, and this is the side that they just smoothed and ground and worked on. Working surface. Tabletop rock. Remember, I read some of the things that they may have been doing on these. Bone work, copper work, mica work. This is one of my favorites, and you're probably going to get so tired of seeing this puppy, but I love it so much. It's just so rare, so unique, but tabletop rock. A lot of things going on here. Pitted stone, flip him, pitted stone, and they even used him as a hammer. Hammer would not classify him as a tabletop, but certainly the pitted stone does. This guy, actually, I asked the friend who was walking with me if he wouldn't mind carrying this out of the field for me. It was hot that day, and I'm getting old. Didn't belong. This does not look like anything any of us would pick up, except it did not belong on the village site. Everything on the village site were little gravel, it was sand, it was dirt, it was flint debitage. Then you had some tools, you had flint artifacts, and occasionally you had tabletops. This guy is rounded, a little bit of smoothing right here, okay? A little bit of flat. I can set him down and he's going to hold it. And then right here, they flattened this. They took out the curve and they put a flat surface on it. This is tough, people. I know it. But you're going to have to get your feet wet. You're going to have to start looking at these. You're going to have to learn. And just like a little kid, you got to ask questions. I mentioned this one. Some of these are very naive. They just look like a rock. Context, does it belong? Pattern, am I finding these? Yes, I am. And you're going to discover the same thing. Most of these are very hard stone. For a lot of us, they're a granite type rock. Rounded, flat, a slight concavity right here. Okay. Converse says there's two types of these. You can get them that are flat on one side with a concavity. You can get them rounded with a concavity. I just think that whatever this use was significant, and it didn't matter which side they worked on. Coming on down the pike. This one is a little more obvious. Look at the geometrics. You see how they altered and they worked? Kind of a wheel effect here. Concavity right in the middle. Concavity. This has been polished. This reminds me of the bottom of a pestle. Also reminds me of sometimes what you might see with a mortar. Highly polished. Concavity. Flip him over. Rounded. Polished real nice. She's calling these floor polishers. Are you kidding me? Would your wife like to use a 10-pound rock to polish the wall of her whatever? I don't know. I don't know. Again, they can be big, and they can get even bigger. God forbid that you find these out in the middle of your field. But here we are, another hard stone where they seriously flatten this thing out. A slight concavity, like a pitted stone right here. I'm going to flip him. They worked a flat surface here with another pitted stone right here. Okay, we're going to wrap it up with just a few more. This guy, context, sandstone just didn't belong where it was. A lot of debitage, a little bit of real light pounding here. This damage, a lot of people think that rock was pounded on rock. Maybe, but I could also put a piece of leather over this and get a different velocity, a different impact on a different stone that I'm working for whatever reason. But this is kind of like muffled hammering here. But either way, look at the oxidation on this piece. This should right here. Same rock, same identical rock. This one was near heat. This one was not. Maybe just a little bit right here. FCR, fire cracked rock. This one isn't cracked. Look for your oxidation. Every one of these gets dug out. Take a look at them. Okay, 3 more. We talked that our tabletops can be very thin. Even a child can pick this one up and carry it with him wherever they want to go. Very rough, abrasive side right here. Flip him over. This is baby bottom smooth. Polished like crazy right here. Just take him around. Go sit by the stream. Go sit by the mountaintop, wherever you need to sit. Another one. Did not belong on the village site. There are no rocks on this village site. They're all sand and gravel and debitage. And here this guy is. I see patina. This looks like mineral patina and not organic patina. But look at this. It can be thin. This one, no concavity here. No concavity. I can feel a little bit of smoothing right here. Context. Didn't belong. And this is what's tough. And this is what Jenny says in her book. And I'm going to jump on there with her. At some point, you're going to have to draw the line. What goes home? What goes in the petunia garden? What goes in the rock pile? What stays in the field? You're going to have to figure that one out. This is another rock that has been broken a little bit by the plow, but this is a prehistoric break right here. And this is a very, very, very early plow damage. Many, many years ago. Flat, polished surface here. Really polished nicely. I'm going to flip him over. And this is just the way the round rock would look. This is the way this rock looked on the other side, but they made a tabletop rock out of him. All right. So I want to close it. This is long. Thank you. But I want you to look at this. I want you to look at it again. I want you to get a pencil out. I want you to write under it what you would classify as a tabletop rock. These are rocks that are on the ground, on a lap, on a log, where the work is coming toward it. Okay? These are not doing the work. These are in a rested, a neutral position, and something is hitting it. Tabletop rocks, a working platform on top of something. She agrees, and in her book she said, you know what? You're going to have to draw the line, or you're going to have so many rocks. Bottom line is you got to learn. You got to learn how to use your hand lens. You can't be afraid to get down and get dirty. Pick things up. Get together with a friend, a group of friends. People, here's 12 rocks I found this past winter, or this past spring, or this past summer on my sites. What do you think? Are any of these tabletops? And let them ask you questions, okay? Remember, this will help you. What do we use our flat tables for? Computer table. Okay. We have a whole multiplicity, and I shared with you a multiplicity of possibilities with them. This is Jen's book, and I hope for those of you who want to move to the next level of field archaeology, you'll give her some consideration along with Mike Gramley's book on paleo artifacts, 2 killers that need to be in your library. We shared Bob Converse once again. I'm going to hold him up. I think that many of us feel that he was truly the father of Ohio archaeology. Honestly, I don't know anybody that would dispute that, because they would look very foolish. And again, I asked a higher education university, this man deserved an honorary PhD. Why did you not give it to him? He said, because he was too controversial. He made people upset. You know what? I hope you ask a lot of questions and make people upset, because he changed the archaeological world with this book, with the journal that he edited for many, many, many years, and what has become a Bible to many of you and to all of us in Ohio. All the flint artifacts that you'll ever find, 90+% are in this book. Oh, you guys, thanks for hanging out with me today. Can't think of a better place to be on a 93-degree day and to be with friends. And I hope that all of us, we grow closer together and we're not embarrassed to ask those questions. We're going to grow. You got to ask. Thanks for hanging with us. See you next time.